Welcome everybody to the finale of our book discussion, The Seven and a Half Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle, episode 4, chapters 48 to 60. Um I don't even know which way I want to go because listen, thank you for recommending the book, Stephanie. Really,
You're
really,
so
really, really appreciate it. Thank you, James, for the breakdown because I honestly feel like everywhere we stopped and everywhere we started mattered.
yeah. I
Um,
think the first two were really really good, and then the third one just was
mhm.
lucky.
Yes. Oh, it was but the fourth one was amazing. Like it flowed really well and I loved it. Sheesh. The fourth
Yeah.
one. So we did this yesterday. We said we talked about how the third one felt, kind of like sad and there was almost no hope. And then this one starts off that way, right? We start off with no. This starts off. What does this start off with? No, Dance is dead. And it's
We
Rashton.
we
Or
start this
did we
one
start?
with Rashton and
Yeah.
Cunningham stealing the drugs from Sebastian Bell's trunk so that they can throw them in the well.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. The last one ends on a sour note, but we start off with Rashton. It's looking like everything is going so well, and
Live
then we pick
just
up.
restarted.
I'm
Does
sorry.
that matter? The live counter just restarted.
Not for me.
For me, it just restarted. Okay, keep going.
Okay, that's crazy. Um, but yeah, this one picks up with Rashton and Cunningham. So, what do we? Okay, let me start this. What did we learn from the last block?
I mean, we learned everything from the last block.
Right.
We learned who
So,
did it. We learned what's
because
happening.
I feel like it informs the us as the reader moving forward. We learn about Daniel and his no goodness. We learn a lot from the last block. So this block, I feel like what I was going into this block assuming was like, okay, we know about Stanwin, we know about um, DC. How is that going to affect the story moving forward? Um, and we know about the thing with Sebastian Bell and so this is where the note comes in handy, right? Steal those drugs.
Yeah,
You
which I
left
think we
us.
kind
Let's
of
steal.
forgot to mention in previous ones, but basically
Yes, we
this
did.
this last section closes all the loops. It puts all the puzzle
Yes,
pieces into place. Um, and I
almost
feel
all
like
because we get. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I feel like he does a pretty good job of wrapping all the loose ends. I think if you were to read this book and not be satisfied with the ending, that would be very, very valid. But I think he does like address everything that he opens along the way, like does get addressed
Yes,
in this last
he
section.
does. Yes, he does. Mhm.
In a, I feel like is a
Oh, I
really
think
satisfying.
yes, it is. Yes, if we're gonna start there, I feel like the end was amazing. The thing that blew my mind this last block was Silvertear. Um, so Silvertear, and then finding out what Blackheath really truly is,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
and who is behind the curtain, and I was going through, was I right about the who's behind the curtain, was I right about who what led Aiden here, who is Anna, like we get answers to everything, and I think I liked it. And I think the most important question is who killed Evelyn Hardcastle, and I
yeah.
think this answers it in the most incredible way, which is why I think if you read this and you didn't like the conclusion, then I would want to know why. Honestly, if there was someone who didn't like it, I'd honestly want to know why and what you
I
didn't
will
like.
say, I will say that. So I don't read a ton of mystery thriller. It's just super not my genre. This is very much outside of like my typical comfort zone, and I
Mhm.
loved it. But I will say that like I know a very common like um, barometer for mystery thrillers and whether or not it's a good one is, are you able, not did you, but could you solve the murder before you get to the end? Like, were all the clues there that you needed and you just didn't see them, or like you were too much up in what was going on, so you didn't put it together, or whatever. And I will say that I don't know that this book satisfies that. I think the twist at the end of this, like, you just have literally no reason to anticipate that the twist is what it is. It doesn't
No,
bother
that is
me.
big
I
facts.
didn't mind it at all. Like, I think it's a very satisfying ending. But if you read a lot of mystery thriller and like you read it so that you can solve the murder before it's revealed, I
Hmm.
can totally understand this book upsetting you.
Interesting. So if your purpose for reading is to solve the murder before it's resolved,
I
then
just
because
don't
of the
see
way
how
this twists at
all
the end,
this.
yeah, no, honestly, because the way this twists at the end, do we want to break the twist open and start back to top?
We could do this however you want.
I'm so scatterbrained about this because
Okay.
literally
I
just
took
no, not
I took
scatterbrained. Like my brain is broken. It's
I
the
took a
thing
lot
I
of
was saying
notes.
yesterday a lot.
I
Mhm.
took a lot of summary notes because so much does happen in this section. And I also want to
Yes.
throw out there that even though this is my second time reading it, I truly did not remember most of what happens in the end of this book. Like, when
Ooh.
I think back to my reading of this last year, like a lot of like nitty gritty detail is not what I retained. What I retained was just like the joy of trying to figure out what was going on and like trying to anticipate what was happening next. So like a lot of the stuff that gets revealed in this last 100 pages, I was like, I totally forgot that, which I think was enjoyable.
Yeah,
Um,
it's enjoyable to. I feel like it's like you going back through it must have just been like mind bending.
it was fun. It was a good time.
Mhm.
So like I'll give like a really, really brief summary and then we can talk about what like broke your brain or like what you totally didn't see coming or
Please,
those things.
because my
Okay.
ears are still smoking.
Okay. So we left off yesterday in Rashton, who's the constable, and he's just like a very go get him, I'm gonna figure this out, I'm gonna crack the code type of situation. So we open on this section with um Rashton and Cunningham ransacking Bell's room so that he can steal the drugs, which of course we know from Bell's first day. Like, he comes back to his room to get the drugs and the trunk is now empty. So they
Mhm.
steal the drugs, and during and Grace, Rashton's girlfriend, is like keeping watch outside, but Cunningham and Rashton have a conversation where he confirms that Cunningham knows who his father is. And Cunningham's kind of got this, like, we find out what Cunningham's motivation has been this whole time, right? Because we knew through Ravencourt that Cunningham had his own agenda and like he was doing his own things in
Mhm.
the background. And that question's been kind of looming. And basically, he's trying to clear his father's name. And he doesn't like the prospect that in clearing his father's name, he's going to condemn his mother.
Right.
So we get more about Cunningham, which is really nice. And then they like dump the drugs down the well, and then Aiden, my handwriting got really sloppy. He leaves that, and then sorry, one other thing is he asks Cunningham what he can remember about that day and where was Michael. So on the day that Thomas was murdered, where was Michael? And Michael wasn't playing with the other children that day. He was homesick.
Mhm.
So we now have like more suspicions against Michael. Um,
Right.
Rashton then tries to find Anna, and in the course of that, he discovers that Peter has been murdered. So Peter was drugged, and the implication is that he was poisoned. The drinks that they all had that morning, his drink was poisoned.
Mhm.
Anna is there. They talk a little bit. He convinces Anna to send Evelyn to him while he's waiting. Like, he'll guard the butler and Gold, and if Anna will go get Evelyn. Anna doesn't come back for like multiple hours. And so eventually he gives up and then he searches Evelyn and Helena's rooms. And while he's searching that, he finds a gun, a starting pistol, and a vial of blood, and a vial of a drug that mimics, like, it's like a coma drug, a temporary coma.
Yeah.
Uh, and so he then confronts Evelyn and basically says, like, you're gonna fake your murder. And so he like leverages some info with her. I know there's a lot of detail here, but he confronts
That's fine.
Evelyn. What was that?
That's fine. We will discuss a lot of this. So.
Yeah. Um, so basically he like convinces Evelyn that he wants to help her. She admits that like there's this plan to like fake her murder so that she doesn't have to marry Ravencourt, and then she can just go back to Paris and live under a different name. And that way like Michael still gets to inherit what he's going to inherit, but she doesn't have to live married to Ravencourt, and like they can all just go about their lives. And so he convinces her that he wants to help, and that the ticket to this is befriending Derby because they need Derby's pistol. That night he then goes and hides in the bushes, and he has a conversation with the plague doctor. The plague doctor is confused because Aiden is kind of brushing off the plague doctor because he's seen the plague doctor interact with Daniel twice. So he's like, I don't trust you, like whatever. And the plague doctor's like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, I wasn't there. And so that's like kind of weird. And it like basically just solidifies that Aiden doesn't trust him anymore, but we don't get like resolution on that at the moment. So then from the bushes, Rashton watches the fake murder again. And this time he arranges for Evelyn's body to be taken to the sunroom, and he arranges for Michael to be able to have like a moment alone with his sister in the sunroom. So, you know, the servant men, whatever, like ferry her body over. Dickie plays his part, but isn't privy to like Rashton's machinations. Then in the sunroom, he hides so that Michael doesn't know that he's in the sunroom, and Michael tries to finish the job. So Michael legitimately tries to kill Evelyn. He tampered with the gun, though, such that he can't actually kill Evelyn. And so then he comes out and he confronts him. And Michael is basically saying, like, I am trying to kill her because I don't want her to live this terrible life. Like, I love her so much. This is the only thing that I can do. They kind of have this weird conversation, and Michael takes a drink. He like finishes Evelyn's drink from before. And they have this weird like back and forth, and then it turns out that the drink that he just drank was poisoned, and so Michael starts to die, and then immediately afterward Evelyn starts to die because her drink was poisoned as well. Rashton had a note of which drugs to pilfer out of Sebastian's case. He mixes a concoction, but he can only save which one of them. He doesn't know which one to save. He ultimately chooses Evelyn. He saves Evelyn, at which point the footman comes in. Right? Yeah, the footman comes in and
basically makes him surrender.
Yeah. Basically he says, I have Anna, and if you don't die willingly, like I'll just go and torture her. So he gives himself up so that Anna won't get tortured. And then we hop back to day 3. And conveniently, Donald Davies is in a carriage on his way back to Blackheath in the nick of time. And of course, he's got Gold's message in his head, like, don't get out of the carriage, don't get out of the carriage, don't get out of the carriage. But he does get out of the carriage, and his intention, he like gets a gun from the stables. His intention is to go find Michael before Michael can kill Evelyn. But Daniel intercepts him and convinces him to go after the footman because the footman has Anna. Aiden goes along with it, and that was a couple of infuriating pages of like, how have you not put this together yet? Like, what are you doing? Why are you going with Daniel? But he confronts Daniel when they get out into the forest. Daniel reveals that the footman, we finally understand the way the footman, what the footman's role in all of this is, which is that the footman is just part of Blackheath. Daniel Coleridge is an awful, slimy human, and he has a lot of people on his payroll, and the footman is one of them, and the footman just kind of does whatever he wants, whatever Daniel wants him to do. And so
Daniel wants him to.
He's not part of the machinations necessarily. He just happens to be a horrible person who's at Blackheath. And then at this point, a different plague doctor comes out and says that Aiden has messed everything up. There's like a weird exchange between them all, and we realize that the two interactions that Aiden saw earlier were not his plague doctor and Daniel. It was this other plague doctor and Daniel. Daniel then goes on the run. Aiden chases him. They scuffle, they argue. They have this like, Aiden tries to present this like moral argument of like what you do to get out of here. like, how are you going to live with that? Like, if you become the monster, like, you don't deserve to live in the real life. And Daniel's like, nah, homie, like, I got to survive. Bye.
Yeah.
They tussle, and Daniel starts to drown Aiden. Anna saves him at the nick of time to convey the message that they need to meet at 7:12 in the morning. But she's not able to actually save him, and so he dies. But while he's drowning, he gets a vision of Thomas, and he feels like Thomas's spirit has been trapped at the bottom of the lake, and it's so sad,
Yeah.
so eerie.
It is. It is.
So then he dies, and he goes back to all of that was as Donald Davies, because he came back from the carriage. But he comes out of the carriage late at night, so there's like, it's like a really short window. And then he wakes up on day 8, which is Gregory Gold. However, he disrupted the pattern. Whatever the footman was going to do was not successful. And so Gregory Gold has his mind intact. So he wakes up in bed with Madeline, who's the maid. They really got high together last night. So Madeline is a laudanum addict, and presumably other drugs as well. They have like a very awkward conversation, and she goes back up to Blackheath. Aiden, as Gregory Gold, has a much harder time maintaining his own personality. He keeps getting lost in Gregory Gold. He's trying to like kind of process what's going on, and then he paints basically like this mural across the wall that like tracks all of his days, because that's how Gregory Gold processes, is through art. So he paints everything that he knows, and at this point the plague doctor comes in. The plague doctor's like, you're never here, you've never been here, like what are you doing here? And he's like totally startled, and he realizes through this painting on the wall that Aiden has solved the murder, that Michael is the one who kills Evelyn Hardcastle. And so he says, like, you've done it, you're free. The next time you wake up, you will be free at Blackheath, you won't be here anymore. And Aiden's like, that's not good enough for me. Like, I want Anna to come out as well. Like, also there are things that I haven't figured out. Like, there's so much going on. Like, I'm not ready to be over here, and I'm not going to leave Anna. And the plague doctor's like, you've got to. That's not how this works. And then so then we get the plague doctor kind of he totally breaks protocol and like levels with Aiden. He takes his mask off, he reveals who he is, and we get the skinny of Blackheath, which is that Blackheath is a rehabilitation prison program, and people who are convicted of crimes are sent to Blackheath to solve murders.
And the part that killed me is that Blackheath is supposedly where like the worst of the worst go.
Yeah. And we find out that Anna is not Aiden's friend. So this is the dirty laundry, right? So now we're getting into the end and the resolution. So the plague doctor explains to him, like, you did not come here to save Anna. You came here to kill Anna. Anna is actually Annabelle. And Annabelle is, we don't get a lot of details, but like the insinuation is that she's some kind of mass murderer. Whatever it was that she was doing was particularly atrocious, to the point where like half the world hated her, like knew her by name and hated her for the atrocities that she committed. And that Aiden Bishop's sister is one of the casualties, and that she was a particularly gruesome victim of Annabelle. And when she gets captured and arrested, Aiden Bishop says, it's not good enough for me. That's not enough justice. Like, if I can go in and I can get her out, then she will serve, like, real justice will be served. So basically Aiden goes in so that he can save Anna, so that he can kill her himself, because he's unsatisfied with the justice done to his sister. But they've been caught in this loop for 30 years. We get the final definite amount of time. It's been 30 years. And in those 30 years, Aiden has come to himself and lost himself so many times that he is no longer the same Aiden Bishop that went in. Once Aiden kind of realizes this, he starts to argue with the plague doctor that Annabelle is no longer Annabelle, that woman is dead and she is now Anna, and that he's witnessed firsthand her kindness and her compassion and her reformation. That like, and there's this like really beautiful line of like, how they determine if somebody is rehabilitated and ready to go back into the real world is like, if you are presented a day with no consequences, what you do with that day determines whether or not you're ready to re-enter society. So excuse me,
Yes.
left to your own devices, like what are you going to do with a consequence-free day? And that kind of indicates like why Aiden is so interesting to the plague doctor, because Aiden is the first person to like not run amok with a consequence-free day, like that he still holds
Hmm.
to like the original morality that he came in with, although kind of not, right? Because the morality he came into Blackheath with was, I want to kill this lady.
I want to kill.
Oh.
Yes.
So anyway, they go back and forth. I don't want to like diminish that conversation because it's a really interesting conversation. But at the end of it, Aiden has basically convinced the plague doctor, like, oh, I haven't solved it all. Like, there's more going on, and if Anna presents the rest of this puzzle, will you let us both three? And the plague doctor makes no promises, but he says like, I will come with an open mind, and you can present your case to me again at the time. And so Gregory Gold, or he leaves as Gregory Gold, um, or he realizes like the key to everything that he doesn't know yet is Millicent Derby's death. If he can solve who
Yes.
killed Millicent Derby, because Michael must not have been working alone,
Mm.
then if he can help Anna solve who killed Millicent Derby, then they can both get out, hopefully. So he then goes and finds Anna. Anna has just woken up at 7:12 a.m. That's when Anna's day begins. In the meantime, he's written the book that we see Anna with and all the other days.
Analyst. Yes.
Gregory Gold writes for her and gives it to her, and he sets in motion all of the things that we've seen in the previous days. He kind of like, they have like a little squabble because the only thing that she remembers is like, you killed me last time. And so he like wins back her trust, and like they have like this kind of touching moment. So he gives her a bunch of instructions. We're not necessarily privy to all of those instructions, but we've seen all the ways that she's acted in the days before.
Right.
And he plays the part. He beats up the butler, and then himself as Rashton knocks himself out. And he's great because that's at the top of the day. Is that Gregory Gold beats up the butler, and then they both are taken to the gatehouse, and then they're kept there all day. And so then we're back in. He wakes up as the butler.
Day two.
And the footman, yeah, we're back to day two. The footman is in the room with them, and they scuffle, and Aiden and Annabelle manage to kill the footman.
Let's
Very
go.
satisfying moment. Admittedly,
Yes.
largely luck, right? Like Aiden gives it a really good go, but the butler's body is so old and so broken and like so fragile that like it really is luck that
Hmm.
solidifies.
Everything about that. Yes.
Yeah, so the footman dies. The butler passes out again because of the. Oh, sorry. It, in our last day too, it's implied that the butler is murdered by the footman, but the
Right.
footman admits in this scuffle, like I purposely didn't kill you because I need more information from you.
Hmm.
Um, anyway, so that's how the butler is still alive. Like he does acknowledge that. So the effort causes the butler to pass out again. But because the footman is dead, Annabelle is now free to go untie Gregory Gold. So he wakes up as Gregory Gold. Anna gets him out of all of the, he's strung up. So she like gets him down, and then they scamper around. Right, like this is, um,
They save Donald Davies.
yeah. Uh, my my line by line notes kind of end here because the last like 40
Okay.
pages are just like a whirlwind. But
Okay.
so they run amok. They follow, um,
They save Darnell
or like,
Davies and they follow the track of the house into the boathouse. And this is where I think shit hits the fan because
yeah,
one of my theories at this point was the lady of the house. The reason why no one can find her is she's dead.
yeah,
And they get
yeah.
into the boathouse. They move some things around. They move some things around, and there's a boat. There's a blanket. Moves the blanket over, looks down. Oh my God! It's the lady of the house. Why is she here? How is she here? And I think Anna asks Aiden, and Aiden goes, "History repeats itself." Aiden as Gregory Gold is still very weak because he was strung up all day. Um, and they're searching the house, and and another lantern, because Aiden had given a message to Cunningham, to kind of like start a rumor in the house about them finding stuff at the boathouse. Someone now is heading towards the boathouse, and
Yeah.
this is the part that maybe
Yeah.
fractured my brain into like 70,000 pieces.
So this is the part that you could not. There's no way you can anticipate this twist.
No, no. And I think this is the perfect place to start our breakdown.
Okay.
Um, in walks the character that I've said, this is the person who did it, right? I've been going on and on and on. How come this person isn't there? Or, every time this person's name comes up, something, it's just one line. And Felicity, well, I almost said Felicity Huffman.
Not yet.
Felicity,
Felicity Maddox comes in later.
oh, no, Felicity Maddox comes in
Madeline.
later. This is
Madeline walks up.
Madeline walks in, but she's not a maid anymore. She's not dressed as a maid. She has pants now. She's taking off the maid dress, and she's
Mhm.
looking. And Aiden goes, "What did Aiden say to her?" Let me see. 'Cause I think that's the crazy part. When Madeline walks in, yeah, French accent is like, no. Aiden goes, no. Anna goes, Evelyn Hardcastle. Then she yells it out louder, Evelyn Hardcastle. And this, they're still trying to figure out Millicent's murder at this point. And then Madeline slash Evelyn straightens up, and she loses a French accent, and everyone's brain is turning. Aiden's brain is turning, but while Aiden's brain is turning, he's looking to see if because he had told the plague doctor at Gold's place to come to the boathouse, that he was sure
Yeah.
everything was gonna, the
He's
climax of
trying to
the
he's trying to help Anna put the pieces together so that she can
yes,
say it, because it has to be the first person to put it together. So if he says it,
yes,
then he gets credit for it. So he keeps trying to like prompt her to put all the pieces together, hoping that the plague doctor can hear them. Um,
but there's no plague
yeah.
doctor, so they're stringing her along. They're asking all these questions. Evelyn is a basket case. I'm sorry, she's evil. Like
So yes.
this.
So the reveal here is that Evelyn Hardcastle has been pretending to be Madeline Albright,
Okay, yes.
that uh, Felicity Maddox is a hired actress pretending to be
Hmm.
Evelyn Hardcastle, so that they can kill
Yes.
her and like do the deal, and then just
Right.
continue on with their lives. Um, and
And
we also,
I don't think Felicity didn't know about that.
yeah, no, Felicity doesn't. She was not in on the. She just knows that she was
Um,
hired to like pretend to be Evelyn.
yeah,
So the Evelyn that we've seen this entire book is not really Evelyn. It's
it's not
Felicity
really Evelyn.
Maddox,
And
which makes
and I
sense
think
about the in the well.
I'm sorry. Go
Like
ahead.
the note in the well is like, right, is
Yeah.
her. The
Yes.
her that was with Belle. um,
Hmm.
uh, yeah,
But
and I thought you were about to say something.
no, you go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. So she kind of tells all at this point. She's just airing the dirty laundry, and we get the answer to like what happened that day, what has been happening to Helena Hardcastle this whole time. And the if you haven't clicked away at this point, the basically Evelyn is the one who killed Thomas Hardcastle 19 years ago. That
Right. And I Go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
yeah, you're fine.
No,
Uh,
okay.
just say it.
Okay, because I'm super excited to talk about Millicent's part in all of this. But go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So we learn that the I forget his name, but the stable boy that died
Mhm.
mysteriously. Uh, Evelyn and this boy were out exploring a cave the day of the scavenger hunt, or sorry, like a year before, and
Right.
he fell into a crevice, and she said she was going to go get help, but she realized nobody knows that I'm here. Nobody knows that he's here. I don't need to go get help. And so she doesn't tell anybody and kind of just like enjoys the fact that she let this kid die. So she's been not right in the head since childhood.
She's a sicko. Yeah.
Something
And
basically Thomas figures it out. Thomas learns like what she did or like where she was. And so Evelyn plans to kill Thomas to keep that a secret so that nobody will find out that she's the reason that this other boy died. And she had like a couple contingency plans, but none, like it was supposed to be like a quiet death, and it was supposed to look like he was
yeah,
just playing in the lake and fell in, and like it's just a tragic accident, but everybody could go on with
yeah,
their
she was
lives.
supposed to dodge him
But it
over
goes
there and
sideways.
drop him. Hmm.
Yeah, she doesn't hit him hard enough with the rock, and he starts screaming, and so things get messy, and she has to stab him. And at that point, Helena and Charlie Carver, who also we find out is actually the father of all of the Hardcastle children, that note we
Listen,
see earlier that says all of them is the answer
yes.
to how many children is Charlie Carver the father to. So he's
Hmm.
he's the dad to all of the children. But Helena and Carver come and find her cradling Thomas's dead body, and obviously as parents they're really not eager to paint their daughter as a murderer, and so they kind of just like supply this story of like, was it an accident, like were you playing, you tried to take the knife away from him and he just fell into it, like this is awful,
Hmm.
like
Hmm.
and so Carver, they tell her to run so that she has deniability, right? Because they don't want her Evelyn to get punished for this because they think it was an accident. So Evelyn flees. Carver goes to get some stuff, and that's when Stanwin arrives on the scene. And that's
Messy.
and so in particular, Carver is really covering for his daughter, not just
Hmm.
Helena Hardcastle, right? Like this is a
Right.
loving, devoted man, kind of, right? He's sleeping with another man's wife, but like he's loving and devoted to his family to the point where he sacrifices himself for both his lover and his daughter.
And his
And then,
daughter,
you
yeah.
know, that plays out the way that we've seen it in the books. But when coming back, Michael and Evelyn come up with this plan to swap out Evelyn because she's been in Paris for 19 years. Nobody knows what she looks like anymore. So they
Hmm.
hire Felicity Maddox to pretend to be hers. They cut Dickie in on the deal. Oh, go ahead.
The clothes.
Right,
When
right. So the original plan, like Evelyn hid clothes in the boathouse so that she would be able to like um
change.
is it it's the soiled clothes that are in the
Yeah.
boathouse. Anyway,
No, no, no. She was supposed to change, and because she never got to change,
right. Okay.
that's what Carver went to go get clothes for her.
Yeah. So there are some mentions earlier in the book that Helena came back for her yearly like mourning, but the last
Hmm.
time on year 18, she came back very different, and nobody can figure out why. And they just kind of chalk it up to like, you know, middle-aged crisis because all of her children are dead or awful. Um, and it turns out that Helena found the clothes and put together what happened. So Helena knows that Evelyn was that it wasn't an accident, that Evelyn was planning on murdering her brother. And so there's like this confrontation, and like the punishment is, I will humiliate you. You will marry Ravencourt. We're going to do this whole thing so that we can like get some minor amount of justice. And that like pisses Evelyn off. And so the summary is like really long, but
I know.
through the machinations of the day, pretending to be Madeline instead of, you know, being who she really is,
Mhm.
she is the one who murders Peter. She's the one who murders Helena. And earlier, when you're Derby and Derby is talking with his mom, and then mom gets all and Millicent is like, "Oh my gosh, I have to go right now."
Yes.
It's because she sees Madeline talking right. She's in the ballroom with Evelyn talking to Rashton, I think. Anyway,
Hmm.
Melissa sees through the window, and having grown up around Evelyn, she knows that Madeline is Evelyn, and the person pretending
Right.
to be Evelyn is not Evelyn. And so that's why Millicent runs away to go. She like confronts
Confront
Evelyn.
her in the kitchen.
And Evelyn like convinces her that it's like a prank, it's nothing to worry about, but then she goes and kills her so that she can't reveal her secret. So Evelyn is the murderer of Thomas Hardcastle, Helena Hardcastle, Peter Hardcastle, and Millicent Derby, and that other
And
the boy Keith, whatever his name is,
did you say Michael?
and Michael. Does she kill Michael?
Well, she didn't intend to. The drink she gave to Felicity.
Oh, sure.
Michael finishes the drink.
The intentional murders, right? There's just a lot of death in her wake, right?
It is.
And so, like Evelyn, like kind of reveals all of this while they're walking to the gatehouse where she's going to kill Aidan Bishop as Gregory Gold and Anna. But right, like in the nick of time, she is shot, and it's Felicity is the one who comes in at the last moment and shoots Evelyn. At which point Anna is able to provide that the murderer of Evelyn Hardcastle is Felicity Maddox, and so they're now free. And it turns out that the reason that this very convenient thing happened is because the plague doctor had been listening to everything that had been happening, and not even the plague doctor or his superiors knew that that wasn't the real Evelyn Hardcastle. They didn't know about the switcheroo with Felicity Maddox. And so as soon as he heard and found out or realized what was happening, he went to go tell Felicity Maddox what was happening and where she could find Evelyn Hardcastle. And so they, Aiden's kind of like, well, I didn't actually give you the answer to the question. And Plague Doctor's like, you gave enough. Like, you solved literally every other murder that happened in this place. You answered questions that none of us knew should have been asked. And so you both are clear. You both are free. And they're told that they get to decide whether or not they keep their memories or if they're restored to their previous memories. And I think they both choose to not remember the past.
Yeah, they both choose to not remember the past and move on with their lives, and whatever happens when they get out, they'll face it together, and it's kind of sick.
The plague doctor does give Aiden the warning that, like, the moment you wake up, you have to start running, and you will be running for the rest of your days, right? Correct. Because Annabelle is a murderer. Like, she might have been rehabilitated in this place, right? But like in the real world, she's still wanted. So like, you're going to be on the run for the rest of your life, but like, enjoy. Right. And that's the end.
It's a super long-winded summary. How do you feel?
Good. I feel so. There are a couple things that like we glossed over, right? Like, there's some cool moments where Rashton facilitates a confrontation with Daniel, where like Lucy and Stanwin's thug and
Rashton's girlfriend.
Grace.
It was Rashton's girlfriend, Grace.
Join them in the forest to like kind of intimidate Daniel and the footmen. It doesn't go, I think, the way that he wants it to, but it's enough of a distraction to like get the foothold as Gregory Gold that he has.
Because if the events had played out, I think if the events had played out, he'd get tortured by the footmen and end up breaking his mind. So and I think that's why when he gives Anna the note this time, because if you go back into the book, every time Anna looks at the book, it's like nothing makes sense, right? And I think this time a lot of it makes more sense.
Yeah, because his brain isn't broken. We also learned that like specifically the plague doctor has manipulated things such that Donald Davies will come back at the best possible moment. Right. Because that is kind of a convenient time for Donald Davies to just like randomly get saved. And that the plague doctor and the fake plague doctor have this like back and forth where she accuses him of like breaking all the rules, and he's like, yo, get out of my mess. And basically like our plague doctor doesn't feel like his superiors should have accepted Aiden. They shouldn't have allowed Aiden to come into Blackheath. And so as a way to like rally against that, any possible bending of the rule that he could do, he did. and that Aiden gets all of these advantages of having multiple different hosts and having a cumulative memories across those 8 days is like because
Right.
he volunteered, like he's not actually a criminal, and so that's why he gets the leg up. Um, and that like at the end of it, the plague doctor like he's going to be on the chopping block too, right? Like he let
Right.
Annabelle
Right.
explicitly told not to. Um, so
So I
it's such an
go ahead.
ending.
No, it's such a great ending, but I have this is the question that I had. Like, damn, like, so if Annabelle did what she did, but somehow got rehabbed, that means. But we also learned that DC is also a character, so
Yeah,
and they've been through this. We don't know how long he's been through this,
right.
but that means he's never like the rehab never got like he's never worked through the rehab. He seems like
Yeah,
the same person in every loop, a liar, a cheat,
I don't
a
know.
bad person.
I don't know that the person inhabiting Daniel Coleridge is Daniel Coleridge, but whoever he
Hmm.
is, he saw the position that Daniel Coleridge gives him and like leaned in hard to it, right? So like that
Hard to it,
question,
yes.
if you have a day with no consequence, what are you going to do? His answer steadily has been murder.
Yes.
Just I'm
Like
going to keep murdering.
I'm never gonna yes. Um but like in a way does so now that without Anna and Aiden, do you think Daniel solves this or he
No.
spends the rest of it? No, okay. Because
I
he
think
doesn't
the
get just like Anna.
doctor, sorry, go ahead.
No, just like Anna, he doesn't get. He gets one day,
Yeah.
wakes up the next day forgetting everything, so he has to keep notes and stuff like that, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think
that's
if the plague doctor didn't know what was actually happening, there's no way that Daniel Coleridge is
Daniel
going to figure out.
Coolidge. All right.
I think that's too
Oh
much
man,
information to glean in one day, right? Like it's literally
no, it is.
impossible
Especially
unless.
if you don't have the advantage Aiden has, which means he gets to be an investigator like Rashton. He gets to have the mind of a Raven, no, the mind of a Ravencourt and the mind of Dan's, and
Yes.
yeah,
And
and he
Rashton,
gets
right?
the
Yeah.
yeah, and he gets the opportune moment like with a Daniel Davies, because honestly that was perfection. I'm reading that part because up until then I'm like, dang, like we're never getting out of here. And I think the question I asked yesterday. Do you want to pull up the questions?
Yeah, I got it.
Okay. So let's see. Where do we start?
Will you want me to read what you said yesterday?
Yes, from the last one.
What do you know? You said nothing. You
What?
know that Daniel isn't a host. You know that Cunningham is Carver's son. That at the time you thought Helena killed Thomas, not Carver. Um,
Right.
Daniel Coleridge is a player in the game, so we're no longer sure if he is the murderer.
Right.
Felicity Maddox was taking over your position as number one suspect because there had been no information on her in the third installment, which is valid. Helena
Hmm.
is dead, maybe suicide, but more likely that the killer got to her because she was trying to make things right with her daughter, which wrong kind of making it right, but
Right. 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 Killer did
um,
get to her.
yeah. Uh, Anna, you didn't think that Anna sold him out. You thought that she was forced, which was correct. The footman forced her
Hmm.
to, and Aiden told her to reveal where he was.
Right.
The footman is a player, which we found out is not true. He's just a feature of
Super
Blackheath.
wrong.
But that
Right.
Daniel was also playing the footman, which is kind of true.
Hmm.
And then um, you didn't think that any of the hosts were the murderer, right? Since Daniel wasn't the final host. So the questions that you had were you're still wondering why Aiden volunteered for this, and you felt like you were never going to get that answer. We did. Uh, and that what's going on is not supernatural. You didn't know if it was science fiction, but it's not supernatural. And we discovered that it is science fiction ish.
Science fiction.
So,
Yes.
and it
Adjacent.
definitely, my big thought about this is a deep dive into Star Trek, but there is an episode of Deep Space Nine where Miles O'Brien is in prison. and he
Yes.
doesn't remember what he did. He doesn't know why he's there. It's a very rough episode. Just Miles O'Brien trying to survive prison with a kind of crazy cellmate. And they kind of test Miles O'Brien's like commitment to morality, and like they starve him, and they like just a lot of stuff happens to the point where he ends up killing his roommate, and it like haunts him that he was so desperate for food that he was willing to take another person's life. And then Cisco shows up and saves him, and it turns out that he was falsely accused of a crime, but the way that this planet that they were on punishes people is they don't actually put them in prison, they implant memories of prison in their people's minds so that they will not commit crimes again. And this feels
Yes.
exactly like that. That's my Deep Space
Hard
Nine plug.
time.
Go watch Deep Space Nine.
No, that is perfect. Uh, and so was that it? Was that what are those all the questions I had?
That was everything that you wrote down, or that you said last time.
And all those questions got answered.
Yeah.
We know why Aiden goes into this, and it's. I think that's one of the best parts of the book, right? When you're reading Aiden remembering, or you're reading Aiden and his Gregory Gold remembering all of this, but then you're hearing that voice, right? That Aiden voice in his head say, "Look, it's been time. Just the same way you've changed, and the same way you came here for this." She's changed because she has. If she hadn't been rehabilitated, look at what's going on with Dan Coolidge. She has saved you twice, three times. She's your friend in all of this. You promised her. So whatever feeling you have right now about your sister, just deal with it. Finish what you're here to do. Get her out. And again, I'm reading that and I'm saying to myself, like, if I was, would I be able to? Because that is
Yeah.
a tough thing to just say, okay. But then if you think about it again, we don't know how this works. We don't know if they're in there and their brain is going through 30 years and their bodies are still the same. So they're in there, right? And if half the world hates this woman because, and then not just that, the way she killed your sister, very public,
Mm-hmm.
tortured her for several days, like, which also explains why Aiden killed her. That
Yeah.
I don't know how many times, but this is what she remembers is that he killed her. So I'm pretty sure he spent the first maybe 4 years
Yeah. Yeah. And one thing
just
that I really like about this book is that I feel like the ending is pretty like all of the questions that, well, not literally all, but like the major questions that come up as you're reading this book of like what's happening, who's why is this happening, who's doing this, who's blah blah blah, all of those things get answered, but there's still
all
so
of
much that we don't know. Like we don't truly know what Annabelle did. We don't really know what Aiden's past was before Blackheath. We obviously have no
hmm
idea what's going to happen to them after Blackheath. We
yeah.
don't know like what role the plague doctor is actually playing. Like there's a line where he describes when the plague doctor takes off his mask. He there's a line where he says that like if my tiredness was poured into a form, this is what it would look like.
Yeah.
uh and so just like, is the plague doctor being punished as well, right? Is this his 9 to 5, or is he also in some kind of purgatory? Like
Right. Because I
what?
think he says that, right? He's like only a mad because I think this is when the plague doctor like steps up outside and is all dramatic, like, oh my god, what am I getting myself into? He's like he's thinking to himself like only a mad person, only someone who's insane can keep doing this because if you're the plague doctor, you remember everything,
Yeah.
everything. So all the deaths, all the lot loops, everything, nothing is so yeah, you got to be crazy at some point. So it could be a punishment for the plague doctor to be an
Yeah.
assessor.
Yeah.
So there's a lot,
Yeah. And we find out
and
that there are other scenarios. There are other
right,
murders or crimes that are criminals are living through.
hmm
And so that's
I
interesting,
think
right? Like, how do
right.
they recreate these scenarios? Like, how do they do all of that? Like, there's a lot of questions about the world at large, but the story feels satisfyingly ended.
hmm hmm I will ask this though, because again, it says that even the plague doctor and his supervisors didn't know that
Yeah.
Evelyn wasn't Evelyn. So like if this is a program, right? Is this a self okay, now this is me just going in, this is my deep dive. If this is a program, if this is this a self-learning program that decides to switch things up because it's been through so many loops, we don't know if it's always been Evelyn. We don't know if it's
Mhm.
always been Felicity.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think I kind of took it as like, however it is that they're able to create these scenarios is perfect, but that doesn't mean that they understand the scenario.
Interesting.
Right? So like if let's say they were able to download all the memories of everybody who was at Blackheath that day, the day of Evelyn's murder, all of that is accurate, all of that is true, all of that is what it was, but that doesn't mean that they are able to put, right, they can't connect the dots themselves necessarily.
Mm. I mean, it we did get from the plague doctor that the murder was never solved.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's apparently
And
something
I
that had
understand why.
happened.
That's a wild plot twist.
Yes. So it's something that happened, and they're using it as a rehab system, which is amazing. No, I think it's an amazing way to write. Again, getting close to the end, I'm like, they're not gonna like, I'm not gonna be satisfied because I'm not gonna know why, I'm not gonna know who. And when we
Mhm.
get to the very end, it's like, so wait, Evelyn's not dead? Who's that?
Yeah.
And mind blown. But I think this kind of helped put my mind
Yeah.
back together. Thanks, Steph.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed, like, because I was convinced that Daniel did have something to do with it in the end, and of course he doesn't, right? He's just another player trying to solve the game.
Exactly.
Um yeah, I'm just looking through what I highlighted. Oh, there's a line about the footman. Um the footman appears unexpectedly as he's wont to do. And Aiden describes him as he's wearing his red and white livery, the jacket dotted with grease spots and dirt, as though the essence of him is somehow leaking through. Beautiful.
Hmm. Hmm. All right. Are we missing anything?
I don't
What's like your
think so.
fave? Okay, so what's your fave thing that happens in all of this? I feel like there's so many for me, but
I I think that's a
or
really
do I
good
say what's
question.
your favorite day?
I think Rashton is probably my favorite day, although I think I like the, from like a mechanical standpoint, like a writing technicality thing, technical writing. I think Gregory Gold is this beautiful close because Gregory sees the world as art, right? Gregory sees the world as beauty.
Hmm.
And it isn't until we get to somebody who can appreciate hope that Aiden Bishop has hope. So I think that's like a very good writing mechanic of, um, we don't get to the end and there's just like this, nose to the grindstone beat cop who's just going to solve the murder and go on with his day, right? Like we solve the murder with
Hmm.
somebody who appreciates the beauty of life, and I really liked that part. um I think overall, I think probably being able to see Cunningham through so many different people is one of my favorite parts. And I think it's always interesting when a side character is one of your favorite characters, but like when you first meet Cunningham, you're like, you're a plucky boy. What are you doing? Like, I
Hmm.
don't trust you. Like, I don't understand what's going on with you. And then you learn about him through every iteration after Ravenport, and it like just deepens his character at every turn. And I love
Yeah,
that. And
it
I
gets
love that you
better.
find out his motivation is that like he loves the idea of his father and he hates what happened to him, and so he's trying to clear the name of this man that like he never really knew as his own father.
Hmm.
um and you just learn some touching details about him on the way. So I think I think Cunningham just in general is one of my favorite parts of this book.
Hmm.
What about yours?
Um, Daniel Davis is my favorite day. Well, Daniel
Yeah,
Davis Part Two, my
yeah,
favorite day,
yeah.
because and but my favorite part of this book is, and I know my favorite. I have two because one of them is I think Gold solves everything when he's walking through the house, right? And he goes into the paintings and he sees the paintings, and I think it clicks for him right then and there that because he painted Evelyn, right? And he
Yeah,
starts to
yeah,
understand
we could talk
why.
about why they hire Gregory Gold to repaint all the paintings, and
Yes,
it's to hide who
exactly.
Evelyn is.
Yes. And I think he understands why when Millicent looked through that room, she immediately knew who it was. I love that little tidbit right there. But um it's Rashton and his ability to keeps like bite his tongue but still plan things so that when Daniel Davis happens, because
Yeah,
Rashton makes that happen.
yeah,
And I loved how that came together. But again, all of Daniel Davis is like my favorite thing. I really
yeah.
love it. I wish we got
Um,
more of him, but I'm glad with the little pieces we got of him though.
yeah. I something that we have not talked about at all at any point in this, but something that I immediately started asking questions of James when I was reading this the first time was if the icons on the cover meant anything.
Yes, they do, and I hate it. Chess piece, revolver, poison, and the compass at the end. What's on the back of it? Um, yeah, no, the
There's
cover. The cover. Ooh, is a martini glass. Uh, what's that? What would you call the horse thing?
a rocking horse, which
A
the rocking
rocking
horse
horse.
is like probably the least evident, but he trips over a rocking horse as Derby when he's going into Stanwin's room.
Right,
It's like an
right.
arcade rocking horse in the corner. And then on the
And
spine is an inkwell
yeah.
for all the writing of the
So
notes.
yeah, everything. I feel like there's so many clues on this book
Yeah, that's
about
on
the
the
book.
yeah. Yeah, I love this book. I can't wait to read it again next year.
Same. I can't wait to read it again and then find out stuff or see stuff differently. I'll probably hit you up the same way, like, oh my god. So I'm gonna purposely forget this whole book just to read it again, and
Yeah, I'm
not
really
not.
surprised that I retain like I remember loving the process of reading this book. It's such a wild journey. It is a unique book. I've read almost 160 books this year, and I haven't read anything else even remotely like this book. But I didn't remember the last 50 pages like at all. Like just the
No,
emotion
the
it
the
elicited
last.
while you're reading totally
Listen,
overrides the details of it.
yes, the last 50 pages are such a roller coaster. I mean, the Gregory Gold finding like Aiden Gold finding out that and still saying to himself, you know what? That was 30 years ago. She's different
Yeah,
now. Let's get out of here. And
definitely.
making a deal. Like I'm at the end of this book and I'm like, yo, I kind of want to know what happens. Like what happens next. But you know what?
Yeah.
I'm okay not knowing. And
How do
I
you
know Netflix owns the rights to do a show on this or a movie or something.
Oh, are
I
they? I
just
didn't
feel
know
like
that.
yes, they do. They do. I looked this up.
I
I
feel
can't
like
remember
this
where
is
I
something
found
you
it.
can very easily ruin, if I'm
Yes.
being honest. It could be phenomenal
Uh-huh.
TV, but very easily ruined.
And I'm scared.
Yeah.
So I
Is
have
there an
that.
anticipated release date? Are they working on it yet, or they just
No,
own the rights?
actually, no. I'm seeing release date here. In December 2020, Netflix announced a 7 episode series was in production in the UK.
7 episodes. You
Yeah,
need 8. Tell me 8.
listen, it's this, and I don't think they're gonna call it 7.5 deaths. I think they're doing the seven because it's the UK, right? So they're
Yeah.
gonna call it the 7 deaths. Yes,
And the Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, I don't think has got a film adaptation, so there won't be quite as
no,
much confusion there.
7 deaths of it's truly an original man. But yeah, there's no release date. We just know that they've in December of 2020 they announced that they're gonna do a 7 episode serial. So hopefully they just keep it at 7 or do 8. Um,
be mad though
My,
if they did a second season in a different scenario.
I think that's where they'd be going with it.
I think that would be
A
great.
different
I would
prison.
happily
Yeah,
watch more iterations.
yeah, yes, a different prison, different characters. But I
Yeah.
would hope it would just be the actual characters without an Aiden type of character to aid whoever is in there trying to get rehabbed. That would be very interesting to watch. Just the
Yeah.
rehab process.
How many stars are you gonna give this read?
Oh, this is 4 out of 4.
4 out
Two
of
thumbs
4?
up.
Who? It's a 4-star scale.
5 out of 5. 2 thumbs up. 10 out of 10. Do I keep going? 3 out of 3. It's the
Yeah,
first thing that came to my head. It was just,
that's so
I mean,
funny.
this is a 7.5 deaths, so it wouldn't be crazy to call it a 4 out of 4. Skip that one.
Oh, okay.
I don't
Yeah.
know. 4.5 out of 4.5.
Was there anything about this book that like annoyed you, bothered you wish was done
I
differently?
mean, I what annoyed me was the basic things like, okay, like, can we get to I I think what happens when I read or stuff like this, like whodunits, I love whodunits, but it always annoys me is if I can't solve the murder, then I'm annoyed, right?
Yeah.
That's just it. There's nothing about the book that annoyed me. Everything about this book was good. I mean, apart from Ravencourt, which I'm so glad we never got to really, really meet again, because
Yeah.
that was brutal what he did.
Yeah.
Stewart.
I took a note on week 1 um where you were talking about how like you were like, I'm interested, I really want to know, but like it's moving so slowly, like day 1 this is taking so long, like I want to get with it. And I took a
I
note of
actually
that,
appreciate
like,
it now.
yeah, you get annoyed about how slow the plot is moving on day 1, but that frustration is something that Aiden also eventually regrets.
Hmm.
I think that's such an interesting, like, I think Turton does a really good job of like, um,
Putting us in the character,
yeah,
in the
of like
character's mind.
you it is slow, right? And it does take a while to wind up, and then you take it for granted just like Aiden Bishop does.
Yes, which
Yeah.
you have a lot more of your memory, a lot more of the day. This is mostly you, because it was something I tried catching yesterday. It was like, I think you asked the question, like, how do I feel about Aiden's personalities, or is it one Aiden? Because I think Anna asked at the end, there's still so many Aidens out there. Who gets to leave, right? But they're all Aiden. They're just all one Aiden. They just get to ripple through the day
Yeah.
as different characters. And as you read it, you technically see that every time Aiden interacts with one of the hosts, he's technically like he's we're getting, especially when he interacts with the old man, the butler. He knows what the butler's gonna like as like, so it's him, you know. It's and I think what scared me was that, dang, like, ooh so like if the footman is killing off host, he's just killing the host, he's not necessarily killing Aiden remembers that death, and I think that's what messes with him each
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Because when you
And
if we ever came back around to the loop, it'd still be Aiden moving forward.
yeah. Yeah. And I think we talked about that a little bit of like Aiden knows like knowledge wise that like there aren't consequences and he's not actually dying, but because he's
Hmm.
actually experiencing the pain, and that like instinct to survive like just doesn't really leave people. Like he's getting in his own way because he keeps trying to
Yeah,
survive. Yeah.
yeah. And I love how we find out that Daniel is full of shit, and Aiden can change the day. Because even
Yeah.
the plague doctor goes, "You're never here. You never get to enjoy this with me, because this is my favorite part of the day, coming here and seeing the sunrise. Like, this is
Yeah.
stuff I like. So, and you're never here, so it gives me space to really unwind, take my suit off before I have to get into work. Yeah, nine to
Yeah.
five.
Yeah. Yeah.
And every
Yeah.
time he leaves, he's going on break.
I'm so curious about what time is like for the plague doctor. Has it been 30 years for the plague doctor? Does he get holidays? Does the plague doctor have a family?
So there's this episode of Black Mirror where John Hamm plays. I think it's called White Christmas. John Hamm plays um he plays a guy who's sent into a mind to extract evidence, to extract the murder. Like some guy killed his daughter, and John Hamm is the guy never confesses to the crime. So John Hamm was sent into his mind, to extract that. So it's one maybe like a week for John Hamm, but inside of the mind loop, it's like 30 years in
Yeah.
prison. It's like a 30-year prison mind loop. So I think Netflix can actually, if they get with the guys that did Black Mirror or that Black Mirror episode, White Christmas is what it's called. I think they can handle this.
Yeah. Yeah. It's got promise.
Yeah. So fingers crossed. Like I'm not gonna be one of those annoying book guys, right? Like, oh no, I've read this, like Game of Thrones people or Lord of,
I
huh?
will be. I will
Uh,
rage tweet. That's not how it was in the book.
I can't wait. Oh, we're gonna be like comic
Like,
book Twitter. Are
I
we gonna
totally
review it? We
if it
should.
comes out, we absolutely should.
We
Yeah.
definitely should. Yes. Yes. So thank you so much, Stephanie, again for the book recommendation. Thank you so much, James. And I'm pretty sure you recommended this book not knowing Netflix was going to do something, but now
I
we have an
didn't.
excuse to. So now we have
Yeah.
another excuse to come back and do this. And whenever Netflix releases a show,
Yeah.
um, I wouldn't mind doing this again next year.
Yeah.
All
I mean, I'm
right.
planning it every year, so you can hop
Okay.
in.
Great. Right. So thank you again, Stephanie. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. We will figure out another book and we'll come back and do this with you at some point again. Uh, for now, we are signing out of Blackheath and
Yeah.
we'll see you later.
Bye.
Peace.